This reminds me of high school a little bit. Maybe I should explain that. Having two really smart women to my left and right, I would have never graduated without them. All the men and women up here who are talking on behalf of us. My presence here is I'd like to talk for us. I'd like to think that my experiences are similar to everyone that's out in the audience, and maybe, that explains a few things besides how difficult it was to find this place on one single road. And get the tie right, my God. Members of Congress, and by the way, Chairman Westerman said this clock doesn't apply to me, so don't have it beep. Members of Congress, Chairman Westerman, members of the Hot Springs community, thank you for the opportunity to testify before you today. I didn't do anything wrong. Honest to God. My name's Kevin Costner. I have spent much of my life telling stories about the American landscape, our wildlife, the people who understood in some mythical way that this would become a mission in their life, like many of the people on this stage, a passion worth protecting. My involvement in conservation has largely come through my work as a filmmaker. My goal has remained the same, to simply help people understand the history, value, and importance of preserving our natural landscapes. My introduction to the environment came early as a result of my family's economic status. We didn't have a lot, and we didn't have much time. The one-week vacation was it for us. It was something I looked forward to my entire year. We didn't have the money to fly to Paris or to trip to New York to see the Statue of Liberty, the Empire State Building, or the Brooklyn Bridge. But we could afford the gas to get us to the mighty sequoias, the high Sierras, to Yosemite. It was better than Paris, at least for a kid with my imagination. We could fish in a lake, sleep in a tent next to a stream, wake up to the smell of bacon and open fire. It seemed wild. Never mind that there were other tents and people sharing the same area. It was always worth the wait. But what always struck me, but I couldn't articulate as a child, was that it never changed. It was undisturbed. It was comforting to know when I came back it would look the same every time. It was perfect. But why was it so perfect? Nature doesn't need a lot of help being perfect. But getting to this spot would have been impossible without a road, a marked trail. Even our campsite was the perfect distance from the next camper. So how did that happen? And then it hit me. It was created by people I would never meet, people I would never be able to thank for taking the time, the effort to make it so perfect for me. Something so simple as a road, a trail, as thoughtful as a rail that would keep me from out of danger as a child, that would lead to a lifetime of memories. Now I'm saying it to the men and women of the national parks. My God, thank you. Sometimes we think we know the story, but do we really? Do we know the struggle, what it really took? Perhaps we think of Teddy Roosevelt and the mythical relationship he had with John Muir and their connection to Yosemite. But do we really know the forces that stood in their way? Do we know that these same great men, so celebrated in history, stood on the shoulders of a young boy named Ferdinand Hayden, who lost his father at the age of 9 in 1838. His mother would abandon him, and he went to work for his uncle. It couldn't have been easy. But at the ripe age of 16, he left, and he would teach school 2 years later, this same young man would walk 300 miles to Oberlin College in southern Ohio, and without introduction walked into the president's office and told him straight up that he didn't have any money, but if he allowed him to enroll, that he would do something special one day. In 1871, our country was struggling. It was rapidly expanding and still trying to recover from that terrible Civil War. Our economy was in trouble. In response, an expedition was formed to go into an area that had only been seen by one white man. His description of it, however, was at best a rumor, so wild and so unbelievable that no one really took him seriously. They thought of him as perhaps a drunk. But like any good rumor, it would eventually make its way back to Washington. And out of it, an expedition was formed. The mission would be twofold. One would be to look for gold and silver and any other minerals that could benefit the country. The second would be to find a train route that would connect St. Louis to San Francisco. It would be led by Ferdinand Hayden, the boy who couldn't afford to go to college, who is now a man. It would be funded not only by the government, but also the most wealthy and powerful interests of the time, all eager to exploit its resources if they did exist. But what would happen during the course of that exploration would be so profound, so unexpected, that it would cause a shift in our country and eventually the world, and how we would value the land. There was little doubt that these resources were there and would be found. But what Ferdinand Hayden would see was not gold or silver or even a route to San Francisco. What stood out was the majestic waterfalls, the geysers blowing hot steam hundreds of feet into the air, pools of colored water. What the 32 members of this expedition were experiencing was not just the rantings of a crazy man. What they were all seeing was Yellowstone. And slowly but surely, Ferdinand Hayden began to feel a shift in his own life, his own mission. And against all odds, Hayden would report back to a Congress that was violently divided, with little ability to agree on anything. And that, yes, there was good news. All the minerals were there, and the route to San Francisco could be built. All the things that he was charged to find were there. But after a deep breath, standing before him, he also told them the truth. This single man standing without benefit of a single lobbyist, telling him that what he had seen could not be matched anywhere else in the world, and that it should be spared, left untouched for everyone to see, now and forever. The room was stunned, but that bill would somehow magically pass that day in a House that couldn't agree on anything. Ulysses S. Grant would sign it into law, and America would have its first national park. A country divided came together that day for a higher good, a testament to the boy who said he would do something special if given a chance to go to college. The odds of that happening in the era lived, and the forces that stood against it at a time when America's natural resources were up for grabs, free to be exploited, with little or no regard for the future. It was zero. But he did it. He had a vision and the courage to champion preservation over profit. We have that chance today. Thank God for these people that would put it forth. We have that chance today. And nature doesn't ask much from us. But think about what it does for us, our souls. But nature sits in silence. It's beautiful. It's awe-inspiring. And it's also vulnerable to our worst instincts. It's a patient that can't speak for itself. That's who we have to be. That's why we're here today. It's our opportunity. We have to stand up for it. And it's not enough to draw lines on a map and call a place protected. It requires real stewardship. Millions of Americans visit our national parks every year. Families travel across the country to experience these landscapes. Veterans find peace on these trails. Children see wildlife in its natural habitat for the first time. Visitors from around the world come to witness what America has chosen to preserve. And yet, while visitations continue to grow, many of our parks are struggling with aging roads, deteriorating trails, outdated water systems, historic buildings in need of repair, and staffing shortages that make it increasingly difficult to protect these resources and serve the public. We need the people who care for these places. We need the rangers who educate visitors, protect wildlife, maintain those trails, respond to emergencies, and preserve the stories these parks tell. If anything, the demands of our parks today demand more support, not less. Our nation does approach the 250th anniversary, and there's really no better time for us to reaffirm our commitment to these places that tell America's story. Conservation can't afford to, it just can't afford to be a partisan issue. If it wasn't that day that Ferdinand, I don't even know what I write sometimes, I just make it up. You know, when so much is at stake, it becomes an American responsibility. It's our legacy and our solemn promise to the people and generations we will never meet. The Great Americans Outdoor Act represents one of the most important conservation achievements in recent history because it recognizes that protecting our public lands requires more than good intentions. It requires action. This act will help address decades of deferred maintenance through our national park system. But the work is not finished. The needs remain substantial. The responsibility is ours. So as we think about the future of our national parks and the public lands, we should also recognize that conservation and public access are strengthened when the public and private sectors work together. And when thoughtfully structured, these partnerships can help deliver world-class opportunities and create new experiences that will inspire people to return again and again. Hot Springs National Park sits at the intersection of conservation, recreation, history, and community. It shows how local communities, park leaders, nonprofit organizations, and private partners can work together to enhance public access while preserving the character and integrity of the resource itself. That's why I'm here today to urge Congress to reauthorize the Great American Outdoors Act. We have to live up to the vision that was created. So as we celebrate our 250th anniversary of our nation, I think it's important for us to honor the foresight of those people who protected these places before us by ensuring they remain protected for generations to come. That responsibility belongs to all of us. I believe we can all become Ferdinand Hayden. Thank you.